Welcome to Deeply Unscripted. I'm your host, Clarissa Medina, a cognitive behavioral practitioner helping people break free from limiting beliefs through rewiring thought patterns. By using these methods, I facilitate an individual stepping into true transformation. Another excellent way to spark transformation and personal growth is through authentic conversations that challenge us to upgrade our thinking and perspectives. Here on the podcast, we explore profound subject matter and make room for a diversity of viewpoints. In doing so, we create a community that honors everyone right where they are in their own compelling story. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with an incredible guest, Calvin Lawrence. He is a motivational speaker, leadership expert, and the author of The Happy Leader, a book that challenges traditional leadership paradigms and emphasizes the power of happiness in success. Calvin has dedicated his life to helping individuals and organizations thrive by fostering positivity, resilience, and purpose driven leadership. I'm excited to unpack his journey, his insights, and his wisdom on how we can all lead happier, more fulfilling lives. Calvin, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Clarissa. I've been head over heels about being a guest on your show. Couldn't even hardly sleep last night. I'm just so excited that we're finally doing this. This is great.
Yes, I'm very excited too. So, on the podcast, I ask one intro question and then we just let the conversation go where it will. And so, you will not escape this one question, Calvin. Your
Great.
question this morning is your book, The Happy Leader, suggests that true leadership isn't just about success, but about joy and fulfillment. Can you take us back to a pivotal moment in your journey when you realized that happiness was that missing piece in leadership?
Oh, wow. I'm trying to think of just one particular instance because there are probably several, but if I can pick out one with the leadership part of it, it would be when I first started out and I had a defined role as a leader. I think people can be leaders without titles. They can be leaders with regards to a particular situation or circumstance because they're the expert. So it just depends. In this case, I had become an assistant principal and there were things that I needed to do. And I thought, I'll just be real authentic and honest on this one. So I made a few mistakes in my first year as an assistant principal. We had a meeting with our staff and we came back, and this was an unscripted kind of a situation. I went into that meeting not knowing what I was going to say. But what I did was I bared my soul and I bared my heart with the staff. And I said, you guys bear with me for a year. That first year, I had never done this before. And I used the word rookie. I said, when you're a rookie, you're a rookie. And everybody, whether they're the minister first time, whether they're a police officer, whatever that role might be, you got some growing pains. And I went through those with you all. And thank you for bearing with me. And I know we're going to get better together. And what it did, Clarissa, was it just broke barriers in that room. We had a great, successful second year because of what I said. I could have worked through and not said anything. It would have been totally different with regards to the people in the room and how they would have reacted to me. Once they saw that I was going to let any barriers down, I was being very transparent. That part of doesn't sound like it's a happy leader type situation or the joy of that, but it really was because then it allowed people to the relationship, which I think is so important when it comes to anything, but in particular leadership, that you have to break down barriers to get to the relationship. Because you can tell people do this and do that, and they'll do it because they have to. But you want them to do things because they want to. And in a lot of cases, when you break down the barriers, which happened after that session, then they do it because they want to do it and they want to make it so that your job is easier as well. And everybody kind of benefits from that. Then you really become happy because you're happy, they're happy, and you've got this culture of happiness. The old traditional way was I'm the boss, you're the employee, do it my way, or it's the highway. And I don't think we can survive that way anymore. I don't think this new generation is going to tolerate that kind of stuff anymore. And so you got to do it a different way.
I agree with you. I do think that the days of the toxic workplace are over. I think that has something to do with the cultural difference of the younger generations. because they don't make any room for it. They don't have time for it. That's a positive thing.
Mm.
What I hear you saying is that actually, before happiness can even set in, it sounds like that relational barrier has to be crossed, has to be broken before you can even set the atmosphere up or set the culture up for happiness to thrive.
Yes. Oh, you got me dead on. I think if we spent more time talking about how do we get to that piece, and that's foundational to me. And I have a leadership guru that I always like to quote. I know his name, Patrick Lencioni. He's always talking about trust, but trust is relational, right? If you don't trust somebody, and that was part of what I did way back when, broke the ice, so to speak. If you don't trust someone, you're never going to really get to the good stuff, the happy stuff. People are going to be on pins and needles. But you got to work the relational piece, which look different in different places. But I'll give you, for instance, one of my big deals is learning names, which seems like it's a small thing, but it really isn't, Clarissa. If I don't know your name or I don't care to know your name, and it reflects that I don't care to know your name as a leader, there's certain things that will have that consequences with that. And the reverse is also true, even more so. If I find your name and I know your name and I can pick you out of a crowd and I can call you by your first name, oh boy, things begin to start happening. And that's to me surface level. If you don't do that, you never get to those real relationships, good professional relationships that need to happen in order for a team or an intact team or a company to do its best work, to get to its best self.
I love that you mentioned the name factor, the name part of being relational, because it is true. When you feel like somebody either isn't willing or they don't have time for it because we've got a job to do here. I've experienced that on the job and I've probably been guilty of it. What I try to do now is when I see even a name tag on, if I go to order at a restaurant or order a cup of coffee at Starbucks, I try to use their name because I wonder how many people does this person serve in a day. They're in the service industry, they
Yes,
may not hear their name all
right,
day,
right.
except maybe from another wait staff or but from the people that they're actually serving, they may not ever hear it. I know how I feel when I'm acknowledged personally, even by somebody that doesn't know me personally, but everybody has a name. That is like one way that right from the get-go,
Right.
I've established something personal between you and I, even if it's
Yeah.
just a cup of coffee. And you may not be my friend, I don't know you, but what I've brought is a spirit of friendship
Mhm.
because I'm treating you like you are another person with a name.
Right. You're treating me like I'm another person. You've given me value and worth just by using my name. I love it. When I go into any restaurant, and I got this from mom, I could always refer a lot of the good stuff that I do back to her because she was really good about getting names and knowing names. I go into a restaurant, to Starbucks, into wherever, and I got to get the name of the people who are serving me, just like you said, because it does a couple of things. It does the things you said, it adds value and work to their day. On the other side, and I didn't realize this, but now I realize how mom always got such great service. Because on the flip side of it, you recognize them and they want to take better care of you. If you frequent that place, you keep coming back and you remember the name, they'll get to you first before someone else, or they'll do your drink. They're going to give you the optimum service because you're that person that gave them worth and value. And that's a huge thing in a day and time where life is so fast paced and people don't recognize people or just don't have time or don't think they have time. I think I have a good memory. My mom had a great memory. My sister, great memory. Uh, some people don't have good memories. I tell them, take a pencil and pad with you wherever you go. If they don't tell me their name when they first start out, then what I do is make them tell me their name. If it's a hard name, I may make them spell it because
Yeah.
I'm a visual guy. So if you spell it, then I can remember it. And then I'll try to tie it to something that will help me remember. I had a girl who came in and I never told her that her name was the same as our beloved dog, Chloe, but I was never going to forget Chloe because I knew that we had a Chloe at home. If your name is Jen, my sister's name is Jen. So there are easy ones. There are the ones that are harder international names, tough names. I was a classroom guy. I needed to know names of everybody in my class. I would had my cheat sheet. I'd write the name down and practice the name. You can cheat even at a restaurant. You can have that napkin. You got a pen, write the name down. Every time they come back, the more you say, you may not even need that paper anymore. It's important to do it.
That's true. That's a good tip. Now, okay, Calvin, you mentioned your mom a couple of times. So that makes me wonder, would you say that your mom was intentional then about imparting,
Yes.
whether she had it planned? How many brothers and sisters did you have?
Only had one. I don't
Okay.
really me a couple of years younger.
So 2 of you.
So two.
So would you say that your mom was intentional at imparting this happiness gift?
So a little background on mom was a nurse by trade. Of course, nurses are caregivers. I think there's a special place in heaven for nurses because they have to take care of people wherever they work, and then they have to come home and do the same thing. If it wasn't inborn, she learned it and she knew that she needed to be intentional wherever she was with regards to that. I know she was that way at work. And I know when I saw her out in public when I was a kid, I didn't really understand it. But now it's starting to come to me that she was intentional about making sure that she knew people to the point where I'm not getting there yet. I got to keep working on it. She would know your birthday, look, the kids in your family. She would hit you with a card. That was her thing. Now you can do an email or you can send a gift. You don't even have to go to the store to buy one. That was her thing. She had to be intentional to do all of those things that she did, even with her great memory.
You're mentioning a couple of things, the caregiving aspect, the intentionality. It does seem like there are some traits that either get cultivated through a happy individual. Maybe they're part of the package. It's like the chicken and the egg, which came first.
Which one came first?
It does seem like they've made the choice that I'm not going to look at the negative, I'm going to look at the positive. They are better at caring for people, from a natural perspective, remembering birthdays, remembering anniversaries, little things that are very personal, people that have intentionally chosen happiness over grumpiness and negativity, they interact with other people, with other individuals much better, I think. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. It goes back to this leadership thing. If you have the leadership title, we're in the same cities. I'm thinking of a guy at HEB. I just walked past him today. I know he's the head guy. His name is Pat. I think he knows he's got to be that effervescent type of guy because sometimes the work that you do on a daily basis is not fun. Everybody knows that. You got stuff to do, you got things to do. If the leader or someone in there can bring a bit of positive energy, I think people who do that do cultivate that, and they can cultivate that in others. It's a choice. You got to make the choice. I'm going to come in no matter what's going on at home, no matter what my health situation might be. I'm making the choice that I'm going to bring some joy and some happiness and some pleasantness to other people. And I know my mom wasn't always at her best in terms of her health, in terms of maybe even her energy. She made a choice. This is who I'm going to be. This is who I am. And I'm going to be positive in light of what the world, and it always does.
Yep.
I'm going to be positive and I'm going to bring joy and energy. If you're working in those hospital rooms and there's a lot of negativity when it comes, and so
Sadness.
if you don't watch out, all of that stuff can bring you down. You're telling me more about my mom than I'm telling you about her. She had to make sure that she didn't bring that stuff home and she didn't internalize it to the degree that it brought her down. I think you overwhelm it with positivity and not the toxic kind. It's true to life. I really care about you and I want you to be better. Attitude is going to make the difference between a patient having success, the doctor's having success with that patient, or maybe no success at all. Attitude has a big part to play. The person who goes in and thinks, I'm not going to make it, probably is not going to make it, or probably is going to have some issues. The person who goes in and says, I've got a good life, the whole thing changes, their whole vibe, and even the people who are working with them.
It affects everything. What you're really talking about is your mindset.
Yes. Yeah.
And your mindset affects everything. It affects your physical body. It affects every single day how you're going to engage with the
Yes.
world. And you
Right.
said it, the world has problems. There's always going to be something that you can get angry about, that you can fret about. But if you set your mind, and that's what we have to do, we have to set our mind that it doesn't matter what the world is going to throw at us. I'm going to make lemonade with the lemons, basically.
Man,
And I know you do a few things. I know that you are a motivational speaker and now you're an author. This is your first book, correct?
this is my first book. First,
Okay. I was hoping my copy would be here today. I ordered it and I was hoping to be able to even read a little bit of it before the interview today, but it's supposed to be here today by 10 o'clock.
it's coming. It's coming. So
It is. I haven't even got to crack the book open yet. Okay, so you motivational speak, you are an author now, and I know you do some consulting.
yes.
And as consultants, when we go into a company to try and change the culture, I do it through the DISC assessment. I'm
Mhm.
not sure if you have specific tools or ways that you like to do it, but you don't know what personalities you're going to encounter.
Right.
Nobody calls a consultant unless there's a problem.
Right.
It's the consultant's job to come in and wade through all of that and figure out, okay, where do we have the issues? What are the tools even going to be that I'm going to use? Because you're dealing with people
Right.
and you're dealing with personalities.
Right.
Can you speak a little bit to what you bring and how this happiness piece when you're doing leadership consulting, because that is going to look different than motivational
Yeah.
speaking. You go, you speak your thing and you
Yeah.
leave.
And then you leave. Right. The keynote speakers, they come in,
Yes.
bring a lot of positivity, fire them up, and then they're out of there. But they don't have to do the long term thing.
You
Uh,
gotta work with a team for
yeah.
a while sometimes.
Yeah.
Depending
Yeah.
on the assignment, you could be there 30 days, 90 days, 6
Correct.
months.
What I have is the ability to go in and talk about issues and problems and pinpoint them. And that's where I'm at right now. A little bit of that will be in this first book. I'm giving this away, but since you brought it, the second book is that tool going to be the piece that will work through. They'll have a workbook. They'll work through processes and look at things they may or may not be doing and examine why it is that they're not doing it. And then hopefully they'll be able to get on track. And I'm talking about leaders, people who are fine leaders that got these positions. They can do those things that they need to do to get themselves where they need to be and their work environment, the people who are working around. When I think about the groups that I've worked with, primarily in my field's been education, it's an experience thing for me, Clarissa. Over 41 years, I've had the 41 years of K-12 in higher ed. You see certain things. There's certain things that are red flags. You see them and then you point them out and say, have you been doing this? Have you been doing that? What are you doing with this particular group? Are you having problems here? And you look at the data and having a little bit of a research background, I can look at the data and we can expose some of the things that are doing, and then we go from there. I'm hoping to do a little bit more of that in the future. Right now, it's more of the motivational stuff.
Okay, okay. As you're talking about building relationships when you go into a company, and I 100% agree with you. If you cannot establish some kind of relationship with these people, they are gonna dig their heels in. Suffice it to say, nobody probably really is happy when there has to be a culture change.
Yes, true.
That doesn't mean people don't want it, but
Don't, they don't want it. It's just
work.
changes, right? It's work making changes. And anything that's extra work is work. But you got to get it where you can figure it out. Is this going to beat our needs? Is it going to be best for all of us? Is it going to be make it better in the long run? If you can get those points across, even though it's going to be work, the people who need to sign on will sign on. If somebody needs to excommunicate themselves out, if everybody else is going in this direction and they're pulling this other way, they'll figure out, hey, my days are limited. Yeah.
You just let it organically
Yeah.
happen.
Yes, ma'am. That's it. And it's the best way. I know it doesn't always happen that way, but if it works organically, it's the best way possible.
How do you incorporate imparting some relational intelligence? I just finished a book, Darius Daniels' Relational Intelligence. He brings a lot of interesting things that we all know, maybe
Mhm.
haven't been necessarily spoken.
Right.
Relational intelligence involves a certain amount of emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
You're not really in touch with yourself. It's hard to know how to be in touch with other people.
Right.
So when you're working with a group, besides bringing that happiness factor in and just dealing with them from a place of, I'm positive toward you. I'm here to help a positive change. I'm bringing happiness with me and I'm using that as a tool. I'm leveraging that every day.
Right.
Are you also bringing in that relational intelligence and thereby bringing in some emotional intelligence as part of that, even without saying that?
Even without saying that. And maybe I don't say it until the very end. We're talking about how did we get to this point, and now we dealt with it. But you've got to do the relationship thing, as I alluded to, and then emotional intelligence, which would fall under that heading of a soft skill. When groups are doing their self development, they're not spending a lot of time in that area, but there needs to be more time spent in that area. Whether you want to break out, do smaller groups with that, the benefits have been researched would be huge. If you do that part of it, you can get to the end game in most cases, which is what are my results? What are the numbers say? What are things that I need to do? If it's in education, is high numbers, high pass rates, high transfer rates, all of those things. But those pieces don't happen until you do the other things first. You have to have the foundational stuff before you can get to the really good stuff at the end when we're talking about employees buying in, and then that trickle down effect really happens. If your leadership is not supporting it, then you're fighting a losing battle anyway. And the first thing, you get these guys at the top. If I don't get to them, if we don't talk about it and we don't value it, then it's not going to happen and you won't support it at the other levels. It's hopefully it's transformational, and the whole attitude and what we do and how we do things will change to the point where we're having successes that we would have never had if we hadn't have done it.
It bleeds over into all aspects of the workplace. If companies could see the investment in their employees and staff in this way, it would also bleed over into each individual staff person if they cooperate. I mean, like, some will, then some will acclimate themselves right out the door.
Right.
But if they cooperate and they want to be part of that process, it will actually even bleed over into their personal life because the happy employee is coming home happy.
That's right.
The toxic employee is coming home toxic
Right.
and kicking the dog and yelling at the spouse. Who wants that? Bringing that emotional intelligence factor into the workplace and giving your staff tools on how to improve it in the workplace. I don't see anything but positivity and it bleeding over not just for good company gains, but into the staff person's life as well.
Y- you're so right. I'm gonna give you a really quick story. So I had one of the best years I ever had as an employee anywhere. It wasn't because of the place that I was in, but it was because of what we did. What we were able to do was decompose or deprocess what the day had gone on. Me and my team member always did that before we left every day. And we got all the negativity out before we went home. I know it worked because everything, like you just said, bled over into your home and family life. I went home, had great times with my wife, never brought any of the negative stuff. And it was a tough situation. I have to give you a little bit of background. It was a classroom with kids who, at the time, they called them ED, emotionally disturbed or emotionally challenged students. If you take those issues on, internalize them, and take them home, negativity is going to happen at my house. We didn't do that. We were smart enough to figure it out, emotionally deal with it, and even emotionally deal with the students that way. I'll give you a second little piece to that. They were bringing people into our classroom to see how we did it because they wanted to do it all across the district. It really was a great year. I try to give credit where credit is due. I had a great assistant this year. She was phenomenal. We made sure it stopped at the door. We got it out and we went home and we were all better for it in our personal lives.
I love that.
Yeah.
Along with using that as an example of one practice that you put into place that you saw dividends outside of the workplace.
Yes.
For anyone listening right now, I think each of us individually are agents of change. Anywhere we go,
Anywhere we
whether
go.
you're at the top and you're the
Right.
CEO of the company, or if you're in the mailroom. What do you think one thing, one small practice that an individual could start doing every day? If they are listening to this interview and thinking to themselves, I want to choose happiness, but it's hard. I don't know where to start. And I get bogged down with the news or with the problems in my family. What is one daily practice that could cultivate happiness in someone's life that they could then use, not just in their family, but use in the workplace?
You probably could find a situation or a assignment or something that you would do that you could get done early. Everybody's seen the videotape of, I think he's an admiral in the Navy, and he gives this commencement speech and he talks about making the bed at the beginning of the day. You get that one thing done that you complete, you get an assignment done. It seems like a small thing,
Mhm.
Clarissa, but it really isn't. I think everybody needs to have something that they're on top of that they can get done. There may be just one thing in the morning that you go in, maybe it's even before everything gets started, but you can get that, you can check it off your list, so to speak. Everybody's got their list and you get it done. And then and it's a positive thing. It's a self-internalizing thing that makes you feel like, okay, I've got this one thing done. What's next? I can do something else. I get something else done. The opposite would also be true if you go in and you never get anything quite done. There are places that are very chaotic and hectic, and you never really get it done, and you leave and you go home. And like we were saying about the internalizing and taking it back to your personal life, you never get anything done. You've got to get at least one thing done. I throw one more thing in. I have some devotional time, but some people might have meditation or you have a great playlist or something that gives you this positive vibe, this energy that you have. I'm giving you kind of small things. You get it done, get it checked off, move on from there to the next thing.
What I hear you saying, I think, is trying to build some kind of momentum.
Yes.
Momentum can work both ways.
Yes.
You know, you get in a funk and it's
You
easy
know,
to stay in a funk.
it's either staying that funk, right? If you don't do that positive thing and there's all this negativity that happens and the momentum rolls negatively in the other direction, then you've got a heck of a day. If you started out positive, you nail it, keep that momentum going in that direction. You finish the day, you go home, you take that positive momentum back to your home life. That's all it takes.
We've talked a little bit about what it looks like when you are consulting. So let's talk about your motivational speaking.
Okay.
When folks bring you in as a motivational speaker, what does that look like?
It looks like Calvin talking to you, finding out what the needs are. Sometimes it's about spending some time with the person. I may even have pre-knowledge in some cases. There have been a couple of folks who brought me in and I had prior experience. I already had a knowledge of what the needs are, or it could be a particular group. I'll use examples. I feel like I'm really good with, and this is one of my sweet spots. One of the groups that I love to work with are these emerging, developing leaders, young people who are trying to figure out who they are and what they are. Sweet spot would be 18 to the early mid 20-year-olds who are trying to figure out which way to go, what direction. If there are problems in their life, they can look at what I'm talking about. If I'm bringing a speech, or if they read the book, they can look at what I'm talking about and say, you know what? He overcame a lot of stuff. There were things early that could have derailed him, but he found a way to keep going, to get positive momentum and keep going. He learned from some of those negative things and kept on the positive route. When I think about it from that standpoint, I think that's what be my group.
I appreciate that you brought up that age group, Calvin. The 18 to 25-year-old. I have a 21-year-old son. I have a 21-year-old and I have a 13-year-old. And my 21-year-old is in that age group. They are experiencing the world,
Right.
culture, political, social. They are experiencing the world in vastly different ways than you and I
And,
experienced it.
and we did years ago. Yeah.
My 13-year-old, he's going to experience it even in a different way than my 21-year-old has
Right.
experienced it. The 18 to 25-year-old crowd, they have special challenges.
Mhm.
I remember not having technology. I should say I remember not having internet. We had technology, hadn't
Yeah.
developed into what it is now. He has grown up in an era where the internet's always been here.
Yes.
When my 13-year-old is an adult, he will also not ever remember
Mhm.
not having the internet, not having cell phones. It would be like the transition era between no airplanes and airplanes, or no cars to cars.
Right.
It's a massive shift, not just from, hey, we have the stove, but now we have the microwave. It's not a little thing like that. It's a big shift. I don't know if that is why the 18 to 25-year-old group has more unique challenges than we had, because they have seen such huge jumps in
Mhm.
technology, and everybody's got a cell phone nowadays.
Mhm.
Everybody's got access 100% of the time to everybody else. When we were kids, if you wanted access to us, to our family, you had to come to our house. You had to pick up
Right.
the phone and dial on an old-fashioned. It took a lot of effort, and there were hours that you knew were off limits.
Yes.
It's like now, there's no hours that are
Right.
off
Right.
limits.
Right.
They have access to everybody 24/7. Everybody has access to them 24/7. I don't know what one thing gives them more unique challenges than us, but I know it's there and I know it affects them, because we also see anxiety rates and depression rates
Mhm.
are through the roof. I know there's got to be a correlation. I love that you mentioned them because they need our attention. They need us pouring into them in any way that we're willing to do that, I believe.
I could say this from the standpoint of motivational speaker. I could say this from the standpoint of author, from the standpoint of just being a local citizen here in our community. And that is, we need mentorship, we need relationship, we need people who are willing to pour, like you said, into us however they can. They may not be able to meet one need, but they may be able to meet another need. I use myself as an example. Again, I didn't have all the technological stuff that was going on right now. I needed a lot of help because I think in any era, when you're in that age group, I'll say sometimes the girls seem to have it together, but even the girls need help. But guys in particular, I've got a 24-year-old. So he's still in that group trying to figure out. You've got to know that, hey, it's not a shameful thing to ask for help. Number one, it's not a shameful thing to have someone who's older, who's been through some things. They may not have been through everything you've been through, but they have been through some things in a way that will help you to get through and navigate. And they can help you in terms of making good judgments, making good decisions, having somebody outside of mom and dad, outside of family members that can help you. I've had that over and over again in my life, Clarissa. I've listed the main ones, but they're even more than what I have listed in the book. But you've got to have those people have to be there. Now they're a text away. You can let them know, "Hey, I'm struggling today. Hey, come on, let's go down and have some coffee at Starbucks or baked, and let's have a little time to talk, and hey, things are going to be better." And sometimes that's all it takes. You got to have at
Yes.
least one person who believes in you. And I've had that in spades. It's important.
You parlayed that kind of into mentorship in this space where you and I met on Alignable, where you have a host of counselors, therapists, life coaches, motivational speakers, people that are all existing in this space. But really, what you're getting down to is it's mentorship,
Right.
whether it's one on one.
Right.
In the case of what I do when I'm doing cognitive behavioral therapy, or if somebody hires me for life coach services, that's still mentorship.
That's mentorship.
I use different tools depending on what the person is wanting, but that's one-on-one. If a corporation or a company has you come in as a consultant, that's just
That's
mentorship on a group level. So that part of mentoring another person, number 1, you have to be willing to give up some time. It's going to take some time. It's almost like an extension of parenting. Now you've raised your kids, and it's not that they don't need you anymore. It looks different, but we have a host of young adults that are coming into age, they're coming into their own. And like you said, it's not always about having the answers.
no.
We can provide some answers, but they wanna be heard, they wanna be valued, they wanna be affirmed, they wanna hear that their experiences and their perceptions, they're just as valuable as ours.
Right. Right.
That mentorship piece is vital. I say if you just pick one, just mentor one person. If you could have one person that you're always working with, and it doesn't have to look formal. It does to look like structured office hours. It could be Like you said, a text message. Hey, how you doing? Hey, you want to grab some coffee? Let's walk together in an informal way and let's do life a little bit together. And how can I pour into you in a meaningful way?
Going back to things that happen organically, or maybe a little bit that happens, but I think I'll put a little intentionality into it. I don't think they have to be formal. I think a lot of times, and I've been places where they try to do the formal, let's pair this person up with that person.
Sure.
I think mentorship is a two-way street. This would be my conversation with the young people, because sometimes they think somebody's going to come out of the blue, maybe drop from heaven. They're going to come down and they're going to be my mentor. That's the way it's going to happen. I would say no. I would say, if you're going to do it, look for someone who speaks your language. I'm not talking about they speak English. I'm talking about when you talk to them, we have this connection. If you're intentional about it, I think you can find them anywhere. I've told young people, you have a part to play too. This is a two-way street. Mentorship is a two-way street. The mentors receive something, but mentees, you get something too. Sometimes the roles get reversed. Go back to the technology. You can help your mentor with it. There's just times that you just need to talk and you need to share. You don't always have to have the answer, but you need to be available. It's about time, commitment, and being a resource for someone who needs a little extra help. I know it's important to have someone outside of the family. Having been in education and having been a dad, I know that there are going to be times when someone who's young won't need to listen to
Yeah.
a parent.
Dear old
But
dad.
dear old dad, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but somebody else can bring it and talk to him about the same issue. You've got to have them. They've got to be there. You take time and be that person and be a sounding board. It's the best thing in the world.
You got to have more than just two ingredients to make a cake. If you want a big, beautiful, delicious cake at the end, you got to put more than just eggs and flour in it.
Yes, ma'am.
Other stuff's got to get poured in there.
Any meal takes time. They don't get made all of a sudden and too quick.
Sure.
The best bakers, the best chefs always put a little more time into something. And that's going to be the same thing with that mentee mentor relationship. You put a little time in it, and boy, some beautiful things can really happen.
Absolutely. I 100% believe that, Calvin. So, on your book, if there was one thing that you would want someone to take away from the happy leader, what would you want that to be?
I won't be too redundant with this, but I would say that relationships really do matter. You can tie it back into being a mentor. You can tie it back into working with people and valuing people, the name thing, all of that. But relationships matter. If you're going to be a leader, if you're going to do anything in this world and be successful, you can't do it in a vacuum. You can't do it by yourself. You're going to need help. It takes people to help people to get wherever you need to be, whether it's your degree, whether it's a career plan. I'll even go as far as sometimes you might need a little help trying to get the right match made. It goes far beyond just the career piece of it. Everybody needs to have healthy relationships. Don't give up. Shit. Sit down with someone, talk to somebody. Somebody's going through the same thing you've gone through, maybe even more. It really will help you put things in perspective.
Yes. How can folks find you? If somebody said, "Hey, I like this guy. I actually have an opportunity to have a motivational speaker come in or a keynote speaker." How can folks find you if they want to look you up and bring you on?
They can find me at www.calvinlawrencespeaks.net. I'm in here in Granbury, so you and some of the folks around this community definitely know where to find me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. Haven't quite developed my TikTok skills yet. It's alignable, you name it.
And your book, where can they find your book?
The book's on Amazon and it's also at Barnes and Nobles. If you go to my website that I just mentioned, there's a link right on the homepage. It takes you right to Amazon and you can order it lickety split.
I'm encouraging everybody to get that book. When Calvin let me know that he had this book coming out and that it was called The Happy Leader, I was thinking to myself, if there was one way I would describe Calvin Lawrence, it would be The Happy Leader. So it's the perfect name, and I can't wait to get it. I'm a reader. So
Oh, man. Well,
I've got a stack of
you'll,
books going.
you'll devour that book in a day. Hopefully, there'll be some good stuff in there. Thank you so much for that, Clarissa.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I want to thank you, Calvin, for coming on. Every conversation I've had with Calvin has always been positive, and it's been just full of good mood and good attitude and positivity toward just fellow man and community and culture in general. And so I knew that this conversation was going to be a lot of fun. I'm so thankful that you came on. It's really been fun. I hope the listeners have heard something that has sparked something in them that wants to change toward getting some of that happiness momentum. And definitely, if you have an opportunity, you can reach out into some of those resources that Calvin mentioned and make those available to yourself. Calvin, do you have any last words?
I think everybody's got an assignment, and I know Clarissa's got a great assignment. I'm trying to pair it with her as much as I can because she's so awesome. Be a person of influence and hope in your community, wherever you are. Last words are author quote. He's a Virginia guy like me. He said, "Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. And if you
Right.
do that, good things will happen."
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Calvin. And thank you guys for listening. Until next time, take care.